Okay. Let's see if I can get a little comfortable. So hi everyone, I'm Chanel J. Wilson, and this is episode 2 of We Are Going to Get Free Today. And today's topic is going to be called Beautifully Human, Colorism versus Supremacy in the Creation of Whiteness. Now, the love of money is the root of all evil. That's something that we've always heard throughout history based on just what we read in the Bible, and it's actually a law when you notice it. You know, there's nothing wrong with the actual money, but when people love money, they begin to do things that lead them and drive them to do things that are, you know, just crazy, atrocious, and evil. In one vein, racism has to do with economics. In another vein, racism has to do with supremacist survival. I'm starting to believe both of those statements more and more every day. Regardless of the reasons of the atrocious acts and why they've been, you know, upheld for all of these years, overall, we recognize that our attachment to the system is also what's keeping it going. And it's time that we take a deeper look into colorism as the symptom and supremacy as the root. In any disease, you're going to have the core factor of a disease. But when, you know, you start displaying those symptoms, the symptoms are letting you know that the disease is present. So when we're seeing a lot of the colorism issues that we're having in society, it's basically letting us know that we are still dealing with elements of supremacy in our society. And like I said, the love of money is the root of evil. Supremacy is still allowed to do things that it does. Maybe some of the reasons have to do with global economics, and the other reasons have to do with maybe, you know, supremacist survival, keeping that creation of whiteness alive. In light of what Kodak Black just did, and I was sitting up here going over all kind of different ways how I wanted to do this podcast, because at first I was like, I kind of want to clap back and clown, and then I said, nope, this is another teaching moment. I know you want to rely on the dozens. I know you want to laugh from a place of your pain, but this is psychosis, and I notice we all notice it. A lot of commentators have been saying the same thing. You know, who taught you how to hate yourself? You know, one comment that keeps coming up: it's 2017. Are we still dealing with light skin, dark skin? Some comments, it's his preference. You know, and other comments are, oh, that man really does hate himself. You know, and he keeps digging his hole when he keeps trying to clap back on his own. But the reality is, you know, he is a perfect example of we have not gotten free. We've only been emancipated, but we're still stuck in this system here. We're still slaves in the system right here. It's our mind. Yeah, the physical chains are not on our bodies. No, we're not beat down by the whip, but right here. We've been attacked right here. And he is a millennial, he is young. And he's proof that we're still passing the age-old rule of colorism as the symptom of supremacy and all the many things that were pushed on us, and it's still going on. He's proof that it's still going on and that we have got to work on getting free so that it can stop with his generation. I had to go back and look at the Willie Lynch letters. And Willie Lynch was a British slave owner, and he gave this speech in 1712 called The Making of a Slave. And the issue that they were having was they were having so many different slave uprisings. They were having their crops burned. They would kill the slaves with hangings or different things to make a point. And what Willie Lynch was trying to explain to them is when you do that, you're losing your, and notice how I put in my quotations, because all acts of slavery for chattel slavery is inhumane. You know, what he said to them was, you know, you're losing wages, you're losing your investment. So I'm going to give you, you know, some things that will help you make your people a slave, not just have slaves. We're going to make them a slave so that you don't have all these uprisings. I've outlined a number, when he starts off, I've outlined, and there's more details, but I just kind of pulled out the thesis and the nuggets of what I want to talk about, specifically tailored to our syndrome of colorism versus supremacy and the sickness that we're operating in. And then I'm going to get some solutions on some things that we can do to start breaking it later. I've outlined a number of differences among the slaves and make the differerences bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control. First is age. Second is color or shade. Some have fine hair, coarse hair, is tall or short, and I'm paraphrasing. I chopped some things out because I don't want it to be too long. Not that you have a list of differences. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy stronger than adulation, respect or admiration. The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have your white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. It is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful of each other. Deep, huh? Really deep. You know, when I realized that this was actually something that happened in our society to human beings, like, it's the psychology. They didn't just put this, the supremacists, the slave masters, they didn't just put the shackles on our hands for some indentured servitude place. They put it in our minds so that they could keep us working to keep producing that money, so they wouldn't lose money when the uprisings came, and they could keep, you know, generating the wealth for this country that they were trying to create. Like I said, the love of money is the root of all evil. And like I said, in the other vein, some of it has to do with supremacist survival. And like I said, that's something that's debatable as far as the reasons, but overall, the topic of my whole podcast is we gotta get free from the behavior. So one thing that stuck out to me was how he taught the slave masters to control his slaves with fear, distrust, and envy. And David D posted this on his page. I put the link in the box. Take a look at it and just read it for yourself, and then look in society. I'm a clergy minister. I'm not serving right now anymore. Since I've had my son, I've been on I've been working just on a maternity. Well, yeah, technically it's like a maternity mommy leave, but eventually I will get back into doing that when I find the right church home to do that in. But at this time, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. So, but one thing that I noticed, you know, in my ministry training, when I was in my ministers and training class early on, I was really young. I was a part of a really intense ministers and training program class. And what I loved about that class was it was a revolutionary ministry. And the way my former pastor taught it to us was she gave us some knowledge and jewels that a lot of people just don't do. People don't treat text and then look and then apply it to human behavior in life. We kind of look at the text and then lord it over life like it's a weird rule book instead of applying it like laws in society. Like if you touch a stove, it's gonna burn you. So it's like you have to not only read something, and that could be whatever it is that you use for your sake of discipline, but it's more so, it's not enough just to read something and then you just kind of go on like, I'm going to try to live this out. You have to read it, observe it, kind of watch it in life. You have to let it process within inside of you. It's almost like you're learning a lesson, like a study or something, or like you're receiving a new training almost. And then it has to kind of illuminate in a way to you. And one of the things that we were taught was be a student of human behavior. Observe human behavior, because you can learn a lot just by watching people. Just watch people. And this big part about we can control with fear, distrust, and envy. One of the biggest problems in our community is fear, distrust, and envy. You know, as a little girl, I would always watch other cultures, and I didn't understand why I was doing it. The desire of my heart as a little girl was to see our people healed. I wanted to see healing in the Black community. And I knew we were slaves. I knew that things had happened. I knew all types of stuff. I didn't know the depths of how much had happened. But my whole focus as a little girl was, how do we get free? How do we also advance and compete like other groups? Because I see these groups coming in and they're doing okay. But I always would say as a little girl, I wish I was here before I was born, because I know something happened and somebody's not giving me all the pieces to this story, and I want to know. And one thing that I noticed with other cultures is they all have a common unity. Now, I'm not bringing this up to bash us. I'm not bringing this up to talk about us. I know why they have a common unity and we don't. Because of this. We were made slaves. And one of the things that was done to keep us in quote unquote order, to keep us from messing up their money and their stock, was to slip in the deception of fear, distrust, and envy of each other. Like I said, Kodak Black is in the news again, and he's displaying so many symptoms of colorism. It is sick. And it's becoming a psychosis. And the only remedy for him is therapy at this point. The man needs therapy. The man needs to stop rapping, go find him a good therapist, maybe a team of therapists, and pinpoint the first moment that stuff happened to him and really, really deal with the deep hurt and pain. A lot of that stuff we, unfortunately, you know, yeah, in life, you're supposed to be relentless about your dreams and your goals. But on the flip side, sometimes we, out of our lack and out of the things that we don't have and out of our pain, we chase our desires too. And because of this colorism thing where, you know, he said in the depths of that letter, you know, put the differences, pit them against each other. As a result of this complex of colorism through supremacy, by trying to keep us in control and having us hate each other with that, you know, house slave, field slave mentality, it makes us subconsciously chase after whiteness without us. Sometimes, some of us know it and still sedate and assimilate and do it. And then some of us do it and we don't even know why we do it. And it's painful because we know we cannot escape who we are. You know, I'm Generation X, so when I watch my baby boomers and I watch their parents, I watch that mess play itself out amongst family members and amongst friends and amongst society. It's okay and to publicly say comments, and I always call it A backwards comments. Like I said, I'm trying not to curse in this podcast because I want everybody to be able to watch it. And you know, I'm a grown woman, yeah, and I know I preach the gospel, I get it, but society has done things where sometimes you're like, dang it, you know. So it's going to happen, but that doesn't mean my heart is ugly. It means that I'm a human being, and you know, that's a whole nother story. But we'll say these backwards slick comments, and it could be like in a setting that's you know, it could be a family type setting or some kind of function, and somebody will slip up and say something. Yeah, you know, you do that because he light skinned, or you know the darkies over there, they be do, you know, and we joke because we're all in pain. That's our symptom. That's our Stockholm syndrome slipping out. It's almost like Get Out a little bit. That sunken place, like when that man was like, ah, because who he was and the other person's inside him. It's a conflict. I wrote a song called American Game, and one of the lines I said in that song was, "Ghost ride my identity." If you're from any hood in America, you know what ghost ride the whip means. You jump out of the car and let the car do what it's going to do while you go off to the side. And I said that from a place of, that's what white people are doing to us. They are ghost riding our physical being as a whip. It's like they got in the cars making us slaves, got in our head, and then jumped out, and they're watching the dysfunction happen because the car that's not able to drive its own self eventually is going to crash. So they're also decided it's kind of like, you know, ghost ride it, you know. Look at the blackies, they're about to, look at all this mess, you know, we got them, cool, you know. It's a ghost ride my identity. The line is ghost ride my identity. I think it's your transatlantic dream. Oh no, post-traumatic team. It's a song called American Game, and if you go through my music on my page, you'll see it. And we sang the whole song, like, because I say it. We've been pimped. America, you pimped me. That's why I call it American Game. You pimped me. It's an American game. All the demise that has happened to us, you pimped me, and it's like, dang. Okay. So before I go into the meat of the things that I want to talk about in this, because I'm going to deal with interracial dating, I have to, because right now the new narrative is when we try to talk about our healing, and then when we talk about what I call the nonverbal trigger, and Jill Scott also talked about it, she called it the wince. There's this new narrative that rises up where people think we're hating on interracial dating or interracial relationships, and then it snuffs out the healing aspects of what we are trying to deal with our own psychosis and our own Stockholm syndrome. And then people start focusing on interracial dating, and they start chastising us sometimes too, like, there's nothing wrong with it. And it's like, I'm not even really talking about them interracial dating. I'm talking about what their nonverbal image triggers within myself, within my psychosis. I don't have a problem with human beings being in love, but the nonverbal image of always being here in a society that's told me for over 500 years, black person, you ain't S-H-I-T, and you can look on a billboard, you can look on this, you know, we've done all kind of crazy practices to our body and our skin. Everything according to this creation of whiteness has told us, black person, you ain't ish. Your skin is not ish. So when we see one of our members with someone of another, you know, race, we get triggered. And it doesn't matter what state of mind you're in, be it if you believe in interracial dating or whether you don't. We see it in society in great forms right now. When black men see black women with white men, immediately, what do you see? Ferocious clapback. She with that white man. But then quiet as it's kept. You know, you don't see them kind of repping. And I'll get more into detail with that because I'm not bashing them. And then you flip it to the other side, and then you'll see the black woman seeing the black man with the white woman, and it's the same reaction, that same trigger, and you're like, and it's not that you hate interracial dating, you're dealing with the trigger. It's our Stockholm syndrome coming out. We are already living a sedated, assimilated life, and we're already having our whip low-key ghost rided, so to speak. But then when we see the image, it's a non-verbal image. Sorry, I'm just gonna dismiss that. It's a non-verbal image, but it triggers us because deep down inside we know we are in pain. We know we're living out a psychosis. You can't. It's one thing to be around struggle. You can get away from that. But when the struggle is within yourself, you can't escape it. You can't escape the pain you see in the mirror. So before I jump into the interracial dating, I want to first deal with this statement. Love is love. Marry any human you want because you love them. Okay? However, when you go out of your way to marry someone from a different race, shade, then you are suffering from the sickness of colorism, and that is problematic. Now, in my life, I've witnessed a series of beautiful relationships where it was literally love is love. They married for the content of character. And in my family, I got family members from almost every culture, literally. Some through marriage and actually some blood relations. Just from the different types of people that got together. And some of the people that I know, I won't mention anybody's names because I'm not going to do that, but I just want to kind of pinpoint some things that I've noticed. And, you know, and I've observed because I'm always trying to learn, trying to see, you know, about life and things like that. And one couple that I know, you know, they're an older couple, and every time I'm around them, I always have the most greatest experience. They're beautiful people. Just, and I'm talking about on the inside. When I say beautiful people, I'm talking about on the inside, not look. Just beautiful, heartfelt people, you know. Sometimes they like to party, they have gatherings and opening up their home. What I love about the two of them when they interact is they finish each other's sentences. And when you look at them, you just know, yeah, that's one of those match made in heaven. Like, I know without a shadow of a doubt, that one was made for that one. And I love those two dearly. I love them. You know, if I need advice, I can go to both of them and ask questions, and they will, you know, love on me like you know, surrogate niece kind of thing. And once again, that's a true statement of love is love. You know, marry any human because you love them, not because I got a fetish. And the thing is, I've been around them for so long, you don't ever hear the psychosis slip out. Not once. I've never heard either one of them disrespect each other on that level of psychosis. So that's how I know it's love is love. Another couple I know, similar situation. Both kind of, you know, in the music. You know, they kind of look alike. It's funny, even though they're not the same color, they look alike. You know, some couples take on a form. Just cute. And when I say cute, you know, you see couples that are in love and you can see the joy that comes out of their heart. It makes it cute. It's an inspiration kind of thing. You know, they go to church, they love God, they do their music, they have their life, they have their family. And once again, you never hear the psychosis slip out. In fact, if somebody brings things up, it's when I say it's kind of like, we don't even play that. Like, they automatically know that's not even what's going down right here. And you know without a shadow of a doubt, this is love is love. This is not, I married you because you look a certain way and I want my babies to look a certain way. This is, we love each other. Another couple I know, and notice how I smile when I talk about it, because when you're around couples that really are together because they love each other, their joy kind of ministers to you in a way. It's beautiful. It's something about when two people fall in love, there's a ministry that births out from their union. And one thing I love about this couple, you know, I've known one of the persons my whole life because I'm related to them. And I love that person so deeply that, you know, so when they got with that person, it was like, you know, who was you, what you up to, you know, because, you know, my family, we all very peculiar. We love all kind of things. We all have our kind of things, and people do make fun when you're not, when I'm not gonna say normal, but when you like things differently. And this person liked everything that this other person, who I was like, you know, who is you? I was like, all right, you all right, like, yes. And once again, it's another case of, I'm so glad that this worked out. Like, like when I look at you and when I look at you, I know without a shadow of a doubt, this was supposed to happen. And once again, the psychosis never slips out. You never hear either person slip out something about complexion or look what we're producing or anything. It is a true statement, testament of we love each other. And when I tell you these two, like I said, I'm not going to go into details about people's personal lives, but their interests, when I tell you down to the types of, I'm a theater major, so I love the arts, I love movies, so that's why I vibe with this particular person. So to know that the person that they found has that same interest, and that person doesn't think that they're weird because they have it and they're able to, I think that's beautiful. That is just beautiful. And once again, it goes back to love is love. Marry any human you want because you love them. But then we got to focus on the other half of that, because we do live in this system. Another half of that is, however, when you go out of your way to marry someone from a different race shade, then you're suffering from that sickness of colorism or psychosis. There are a couple of other couples that I know, and you know, when I'm around people, I don't judge people from like, can I judge you from a place of, how can I one up you? I take it in, we process, things happen, and afterwards we kind of, every time you meet with someone, you learn elements of their character, be it if you're having a good experience or a bad. But with this particular couple, I think the first time, even before they got together, there was this whole announcement of, I'm bringing this type of person home. And I was like, you didn't even have to say that. Why didn't you just bring them, over? And we could just, meet the person. You've seen my life. You see I roll with all kind of people. So why is this even an issue, Why do you think that it would be an issue? Have I ever shown you any behavior that would make you think this is an issue? So that was my first thing. It was like, noted. I think you got an issue with this, so you want to make this announcement because you know my circle. I'm a theater major. I roll with everybody. I've been dancing for almost 10 years. I've already stated I was a ballet, tap, and jazz dancer for 10 years. When I stopped dancing, that's when I started putting on my weight because I wasn't dancing all the time. But when you look at all my pictures and stuff, you'll see, that you did do that stuff. So I rolled with all kind of circles. So I never tripped off of this. I will go into detail of how I got to that place. So as that relationship continued and we'd be in all kind of settings, so many areas of psychosis would slip out with comments about complexion, comments about children and hair, and even down to dissing other groups. And there would be so many moments where you would just get up from the table and walk away. It's like, I can't participate in that madness. And it's painful to watch. Once again, it's not because I'm hating on them being interracial dating. This is painful that you clearly were seeing the psychosis slip out. And it's like, you gotta go love yourself. Like, dang, this is gonna end badly. Like this, and sure enough, it didn't work. It didn't. And the point that I'm making is, just like when we watch Kodak Black, it's painful to watch, especially when we do those public. I remember one time, I was in one setting, and one particular person, in the midst of their joke, was like, I dated light women. That's why I married this light person, because I knew I couldn't bring a white girl home. And everybody kind of gave this person a look, and everybody kind of got up and just walked away. Nobody said anything. Everybody just walked away. That was that psychosis. And we just live that out like it's okay. And once again, it's painful to watch. And we all know we've seen it, do it, etc. Okay, so Michaela Angela Davis said in the documentary Light Girls, passing was not just because her family desired whiteness, it was for survival. And there's this phrase that I've heard of, if you're white, you're all right, brown, stick around, but if you're black, get back. Our society is so sick with the creation of whiteness. There are various myths that cycle through us. And when I'm on my timeline and my newsfeed and I'm reading comments, I'm still studying behavior as I'm doing this. And one thing that I'm always reading is, why is race always a thing with black people? That's one myth I always read. And I say myth because these are narratives that are coming out of people's mouths because we've bought into this lie. Another one is, why are blacks so racist? And then another is, why do blacks always call biracials blacks and not accept their biracialness? Why don't they accept their white side? These are all false narrative myths about the nature of black people and what we are dealing with when it comes to this colorism psychosis and that nonverbal image, that trigger. That first one, why is race always a thing? Well, goes right back to that Willie Lynch letter, the fear, the distrust, and the envy. Because we've been trained to pit each other against each other, because we've been trained to notice the differences by the whip. One thing he said in that letter was, use every opportunity to show the difference. That's why we have so many condescending Becky moments with white privilege and cognitive dissonance, because Willie Lynch taught slave masters and supremacists to do it, and we have carried that sucker all the way down to 2017, and we see it right now happening. Another one is, why are blacks so racist? Once again, something we're racist. We've had so many experiences that it's not that we're coming from people from a prejudice standpoint. We're coming at it from our experience of a form of preservation. Like, okay, I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're going to be nice to me because you're going to try to take something because that's what the nature has been. Or if you actually are a genuine person. And we won't know that until we've seen your character play out. So it's not that we're racist or prejudiced. We've had a lot of stuff taken from us and a lot of mess put inside of us by people who are perceived as being friendly and nice. It's an art of deception here. And then the last one is, why do blacks always call biracial blacks and biracials black and not accept they're biracial? One thing I'm seeing right now is a lot of white women complaining about being called Becky, a lot of white women who have black children complaining that they're not accepted as, that they're being denied the white side. I'm seeing a lot of, I don't hear it a lot from the white men as much, and maybe some that say it. But I do hear it a lot from white women who are with black men, because there's right now, for some reason, there's this new thing going around where Becky wants to be a black woman. And I'm not playing. Look in the media. We got Rachel Dolezal, the German woman who just put on all that stuff on her face. Even Paris Jackson says that she's black. I'll give her the fact that she is legitimate Jackson. She was adopted, but we know Michael did a surrogate situation, and once again, that's a playing out of his colorism right there. Michael was the best singer in the world, but we know the Jacksons had a series of issues to the point of you look at their next two generations. One comment I read about that, and I love the Jacksons, don't get me wrong, but one of the comments, but I'm doing this for the lesson, the comments was they just gonna, F the black out of all of themselves because of our psychosis. We've been trained to do that. And once again, it's like I said, I love Jackson, I love there, I love all of it, but it's painful to watch. It's painful to watch that. When you see the Jacksons, the third generation, and you're just like, dang, everybody is tripping off of what Joe Jackson kind of put into that. And I'm not just blaming Joe because he's just doing what's from his time. That was his time. That's what the masters is. This is all control here. Control and economics. So that whole thing about why do blacks always call biracials black and not accept their biracialness? And the reality for that is, black people know that biracials are both black and white. Based on colorism, we know all the details about it. The reality is, it's whiteness that has labeled them biracial, because they're labeled that way because whiteness wants them to know, you may have some whiteness in you, but you will never be qualified as white. It has nothing to do with blackness. I read an article with Tay Diggs where he said, I think it's abusive to call my biracial child black. And then he began to talk about his experience, about how he was picked on. And then he said, black people need to stop doing all of this. And I think people didn't want to call President Obama mixed because of black folks. And that's just not right. And I said, oh, God, he just said a mouthful. That was his psychosis slipping right out. In the beginning, when I saw his relationship, they didn't ever talk about race. I really thought him and Idina were married because he loved another human being. But based on what he's saying now after their divorce, especially with the production of the child and his vehementness of making sure we do not label his child black, it is showing that he is living out a psychosis here. Your baby, first off, number one, is human. So you should be fighting that race more than trying to do the whole he's mixed. Second, his phenotype, because see, we live in a system that's based on your phenotype, based on the color of skin. The crime is the color of skin. So even though, yes, he is biracial, he will always be perceived as black next to whiteness. The black community, yeah, and we do have our colorism issues, and we have been pitted against each other, and we do have our different issues. We still welcome everybody in. It's not a black issue on the sense of we're not rejecting your whiteness. We are continuing the same cycle. And one thing that I have been realizing, and something that's been changing within myself, is it's time to start challenging whiteness when it comes to that biracial section. And I even said in some factors, you know, I can't lead that movement because I'm not biracial, but I will stand on the sidelines and rally my biracial, you know, brothers and sisters on who are, you know, a twofold person in a white world. And they need to challenge it, because that's where they need to be putting their anger at. They put the anger on us like, dang it, if I didn't have this black part of me, I could be accepted in whiteness. That's where the anger is coming from. But the reality is that to flip it to whiteness, because whiteness is blocking them out. It's not us. So that's another myth that I wanted to bring up. You know, all these things, history has already proven all of this stuff. You know, so overall, from the moment, you know, we got here, we were beat by the gun. This stuff was beat and put inside of us. So overall, you know, when we compare us to whiteness, that's what the whole psychosis is. It's how white are you? Slavery had to do with value and wealth and economics. The free labor made our oppressors in this country so wealthy. I mean, this country would not be what it is if we did not produce the free labor alone. When I say the labor our ancestors provided to this country, we as black people should never be without ever again. You know how when you look at all the different things that every other group has, like the Native Americans, I'm not saying they got everything, but how they've been given certain things, like I think some groups have stipends or something like that. Some free educations and some deals, you know, we got a whole wave of casinos from some of those deals. You know, I think some Asian communities, they got some form of reparations when certain things and bombings happen, and there's that stimulus plan over the hair industry because it's $1 billion industry. They gave that to them out of some of those treaties and out of some of those making amends deals. And that's why you see Asian people in the store selling our hair. When we go and buy the hair, that's 90% of their community's income right there. That's 90% of their community's income from our insecurity. I heard Yvette Carnell say on her podcast, Black people in America, we should label ourselves almost descendants of slaves, and we should get some kind of card, not like an EBT card, but some kind of card, and we should get an allotment like every month of extra stuff on it, just because we're descendants of slaves and because all the freed stuff we put out here. And when she said that, I said, dang it, that is a good plan. And on top of that, we should get other things because of how much we've done. The Louisiana Purchase, you know, America would not be what it is had we not been here. That's the reality, you know? So that's just one aspect. So this colorism, you know, it's been created for the purpose of preserving that status of whiteness and loving whiteness and keeping the cycle of wealth going, because right now we live in a system where we're still built on a skewed totem pole, and so it still keeps us going. Unfortunately, one thing I have noticed also is, you know, that same making of a slave implies to all of us, because when you look at levels of poorness, it's not that many rich people. Most white people, there are more white people on, you know, EBT cards on food stamps, stuff like that. The ones that vote against their own interests, because their conditioning has been just let them know they're white. Don't show them that they're just as poor now as some of the black people. Just tell them that they're white, and they will rep their whiteness and vote against their own interests every time to fight for their whiteness and not to be classified as anything other than white, even though they're poor or just as poor or lower poor economically than, you know, the black people. That's the reality of what we're dealing with, and you can see that in society. I mean, when we look all the time and you see who voted, and now what are we seeing? All these people up complaining, I'm losing my health care, we lost our job, and I'm just sitting back like, these are the breaks. That's what happens when you vote against your own interests. Ouch. I guess you're going to learn a lesson now. I guess you're not going to rep your whiteness now, and you're going to focus. Okay, we all in this for real together. Talking about we're going to get free today. Okay, let me continue where I'm at. You know, so like I've already said, Kodak Black is proof that we're still dealing with this. Taye Diggs is proof that we're still dealing with this. And based on how he's vehemently, you know, I welcome the book that he wrote about Mixed Like Me. I think that's a good material for biracial children so that they can process and deal with all of that. But the reality still remains. They have to go now and fight whiteness to be accepted as fully white. I'll bring up the UT, I was going to wait to bring up the UT situation, but I'm going to bring it up right now. University of Texas student. I watched, I think it was Dateline, and the narrative on Dateline, it was so deep. I was like, when I finished the Dateline episode, the way I took it, I said, basically, they just said, we told you, niggas, ends, we told y'all, one drop is one drop. We're not accepting this black girl as white, so you need to accept it. Because the way the narrative was playing was, this girl is receiving hate comments for winning. And when they started reading the comments, one was, well, dang, she's light, bright, and darn near white. Because phenotype-wise, when I say she's biracial, she's the type of biracial that actually could, quote-unquote, pass, like Michaela Angelo Davis said, passing is survival. So at face value, when you look at her, she looks either like she's a part of the Latina community or that she's more on the whiter side. At face value, you would not think she's a black woman. Now, we as black people, we've been trained to know our own. So we can look at her and within a couple of minutes say, okay, you black, I see it. I see it right there. And she's still biracial too, but we've been trained to see our own. We know our own. And same with Rashida Jones. Even though she looks a particular way, she can fit in a little bit, we still know. And not just because we know who her dad is, we know our own. That's just what it is. And we've been trained. That's just a part of who we are. But, one of the things they said was she's light, bright, and darn near white. Dang, so why did she win? Like, for real? That was one. The other one was, dang, ain't this the brown paper bag? And I said, so you're calling those comments hate? I could see if they were bashing her character, her content. But all of those were legitimate questions in regards to this being a black race, in regards to, the issues and stigma surrounding our colorism and surrounding the brown paper bag. Remember, the generations before lived by the brown paper bag. One thing that I used to deal with as a little girl was I used to have a person in my life always talk about the fact that I'm a two-toned individual. I'm a member of the dark skin community. I am not confused. I know who I am, what I am, and ain't no qualms about it. But I do know I'm two-toned. That's something that we all talk about, because all of my family members, we have just the way our look is. It's like a two-tone kind of thing, and in my family, you were either light or dark, and it don't matter who you come out of. And my mom is light, I'm dark, and my son looks like my mama. And I didn't go out of my way to make my son look like that. My ex and I are the same complexion, and we had our own vision of what we thought our child was gonna look like. We thought we were gonna have a was it Noah from Underground? We were like, when he was grown, we was like, he's probably gonna look like Noah from Underground, and okay. And then when my son came out, we were like, okay, diaspora, okay, genes, okay, lotto of your genes, because we don't know what's in our DNA. We don't know what our DNA is gonna do. So the point that I'm making is that brown paper bag, that's how our society, that's how our people govern themselves according to this colorism mess. One person gave an account that they used to tack the bag on the door so that when they would go into these meetings or something, they knew if you couldn't go over that bag, forget about walking in the door. And you know that phrase, you're cute for a dark girl, or some people would get passes because they look a certain way, or they have eyes, or they have certain things, so they'll let them slide in because you can be a part of the beautiful exotic people. So the person, when they would always comment about my two-toneness, and I could be sitting there talking about all kinds, I'd be like, I'm having a good day at school, and and then I'll get cut off. We gotta find this cream for you and get it on your neck so we can get that part lightened up for you. And I'd be like, dang, you just cut me off to talk about my neck. And it would happen all the time. Like, I'd be talking about something completely different, and they would cut me off to talk about my neck. Later, as I grew up and really looked at society and looked at that person's generation, I realized she was trying to qualify me for the brown paper bag. It wasn't that she hates me. I'm telling, but it's okay. I'm not saying that from a place of hate. I'm saying this from a place of teaching. It's not that she's trying to hate. She's coming from her generation. The generation said, if you can get as close to that brown paper bag as possible, we can get you qualified. We can get you in. And I know realistically, I still don't go over the brown paper bag, but I know there's certain elements of my features. I'm not up in the camera. I know I have a certain look. My eyes, I have very, when I talk to people and you notice the color of my eyes, they sparkle. It's a specific look. And so I know what she was trying to do. If we can just get you to qualify the bag. And so what that did for me is it kind of gave me a little complex. So as a little girl, I would stare into the mirror. I would look in the mirror and I would hate myself a little bit. And as a little girl, I was always very confident because of the dancer. And as a dancer, you have to be confident, especially when you're in those competitions. And so, you know, I was the girl that was, it's not just I was outspoken, I was trained to speak in public. So my parents and teachers would always put me up forefront to do the speeches and the oratorical things. That was just what I did. And then when I would get either at school or in certain settings, certain people would kind of come against me because that was my gift, that was my talent, my peculiarness. And they would be like, your dark skin, you know, Blackie or whatever. And then I come home and be like, they called me Blackie and they called me this. And I don't know why they always want to pick on me and talk about me. And, one day my mom had to pull me to the side and say, honey, you are a special type of girl. You're a dancer, you're an actor, you do things differently and people get jealous. But one thing I need to tell you right now is stop looking at the color of your skin and thinking that you are ugly. There's nothing wrong with your skin complexion, but I want you to start looking at people's features. And I'm gonna be honest, she told me this little secret, and she said, start looking at skin complexion. Start looking at features and stop looking at skin complexion. And when you go back on the field, all those girls that were clowning you because their skin is a little bit lighter, look at their features. And you tell me if they got your features. You tell me if they got your look. Because, if you look at some of just when I put myself out, it's early in the morning, I'm tired, and I'm a mom, so it ain't always going to be all. But when you do that comparison, you're going to see something. Some light girls get a pass for being beautiful, but they got some messed up features. They're not really cute. We live in a system that's sick. So just take that. And so I took that on the ground, the playground, like, I know my mama told me. And I would look at some of these girls who was trying to clown, and I'd be like, ooh, ugly, ugh. I would figure it out. I was like, okay, this game is about, confidence. This game is about okay. And so then I would clap back. And that was, the clapping back wasn't right. You should never chop somebody at the knee based on certain things. And, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I didn't say that to say that's how you handle situations. I'm saying the lesson I get from it is we have to get to a place where we start looking at people's features. We start looking at what true beauty is and not just at the color of skin. Because what we see right now is people are bleaching their skin. People are doing all these crazy things to get the skin. But then the faces are looking all kind of crazy, be it with cosmetic surgeries and all kind of things. But if we could just have that skin, then we're beautiful. But then the face is all messed up. There's two cases I want to talk about according to this specifically. One is Essence. They just released, it was an article called An Argument for Little Kim, Faith Evans and Mary J. Blige Being Forerunners of Modern Black Feminism. Now I got an issue with that term feminism in black spaces because of what the feminist movement did to us. That's not part of what I'm talking about. It's the image that was labeled. I'm sorry, my alarm went off. It's the image that was put with the article, and the image shows Faith Evans. She's got she's like a blonde wig on. She's still here cheesing, and then next to her is Lil' Kim, and Lil' Kim is not really cheesing. She's kind of giving that kind of like look. And I just stared at that image for, I don't know, like a good 5 to 10 minutes. Like, now this picture speaks 1,000 words. This picture looked like a Stepford Wives horror black movie. I'm talking, it looked like a scene from Get Out. It just looked like, now this is the story of our American conditioning colorism right here. Every time I look at Lil' Kim now and her conditioning, I'm so hurt by how she looks, because she did that because of not just what society did to her, but because she's suffering from colorism. You know, one thing she said, I'm trying to find the quote. It was in Newsweek magazine in 2000. She said, "I had low self-esteem, and I always have. Guys always cheated on me with women who were European looking, you know, the long hair type. Really beautiful women that left me thinking, how can I compete with that? Being a regular black girl wasn't good enough." And I think Lil' Kim was cute back in the Junior Mafia days. And I'm giving her respect because she's a woman. I think she had a very cute look, just as who she was. And, you know, as you saw that progression, like every now and then, I'm like, did she change something on her face? And it kind of was like Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson did a progressive kind of slide into his whiteness, so to speak. And then, you know, you see her again, and I'm like, why is she looking more Latina now? Like, what's going on? Okay, fine, Lil' Kim. I get it. It's the industry. But then we started seeing, you know, all the poses and the, you know, and I was like, okay, we seeing the sickness just play it. So this ain't cool. We can't keep doing this to ourselves. And then when I thought about it, I said, even though I know they've probably buried the hatchet and stuff, these two sitting next to each other says so much, because they both were in love with the same man. You know, he married Faith, but Biggie told Lil' Kim, you know, he liked the lighter ones, and she loved that man, you know, and so she's probably sitting next to her quote unquote, and I'm saying quote unquote arch nemesis because our light skinned brothers and sisters are not our enemies, and our dark skinned brothers are our enemies. But from the psychosis state, deep down inside, there's still that envy, that fear, that distrust. And all of that made her do that to her face, her body. And Faith is sitting here, you know, and it's not even that Faith's sitting there unfazed, because it's not Faith's fault. That's not what I'm saying. But she also has, you know, the blonde wig. And I'm not saying it's not a part of our style. You know, I have twofold theories about how we handle style. Yes, our hair is happiest when it's natural, you know, as far as, you know, our hair. But, you know, we are happy when we're stylistically free. And there's a fine line between, you know, style and then the psychosis of style. You know, wearing extensions and things like that, you know, protective styles. There's nothing wrong with that. But then when you have to wear this stuff every day to the point where you're losing your edges and you going bald and I can't walk out in public because I can't be shamed as a nappy head, that's your psychosis. So there are levels there. So take a look at that. I put it in the link. And the reason I'm saying take a look at it, because that image is almost like the American story in itself. That's our descendant of slave story right there in a nutshell. Separate them and look what it did. It made us all love white. Both of them are looking like black white women, you know, or trying to get as close to being white. And I know Faith is biracial, I believe. And it's not that they're trying to do anything out of who they are. I'm sure there's some style elements, but once again, the psychosis is still slipping out. So just take a look at that. The other factor that I wanted to bring up with that statement of, you know, the factors of the statements of whiteness, that was it, was looking at those features, you know, with the Gary Arenas situation and Laura Govan. I mentioned it before in my last podcast. You know, Chrissy, she has a podcast, and she talks about all these things, and I paid attention because I read what he said and I wanted to hear more about it. And when Chrissy did her podcast, she broke it all down. She was like, this is Gary, this is who he made his baby with, and I'm like, okay, you know, And the comments that Gary made were, you know, he tried to clown Lupita, talking about, you know, not all blacks. And then in his statements, he goes, you know, I got 2 biracial daughters, I got biracial children. And, you know, I don't like when you're talking all this mess and all this kind of stuff. Ain't nothing wrong with certain things, but these dark women, you know, he was really, that psychosis, once again, was slipping out. And then with Laura, when she was on that VH1 show, you know, she made the joke, and the light-skinned people on here. And it was like, dang, that was kind of off, you know, and then everyone gave her a pass, like, oh, she's just joking, And New York was the only one that checked her and said, you accept blackness in all its shades. That was the first time in my life I ever said, go New York, because usually I'm always like, New York, come on, I need you to stop. But that girl said, under this weed is naps, and ain't nothing wrong with that. And I processed that. But you need to accept black in all its shades, because the reality is, even though that girl is, I think, a quarter biracial, she's still more black, Laura Govan. So I had never seen their children. So in my head, I'm like, okay, well, clearly she's biracial, so maybe the babies have a certain look, and they're right out of the book of this psychosis. When I saw those beautiful dark-skinned girls, and they are card-carrying members of the dark-skinned community, like, we're not even going to sit up here and act like, you know, we're not even going to play that. You know, this is true psychosis in a nutshell. This goes right there with, I got something in my DNA, and the reality is, no, one of our ancestors were raped, and that's why we look a particular way. You're celebrating the rape of somebody. That's what that is. This is, once again, our psychosis. I said, these, and I hate to even call them fools. I said, but these two are sick. And I hope in their household, they are not putting their sickness into those beautiful black babies. Because those two beautiful black babies, this is where the psychosis is bred and built. And when they get older, they may turn into little Kim because they have access to some money. That's how we get the skin bleaching. That's how we get the Michael Jacksons. Because the more access to money you have, you can do crazy stuff. That's one of the reasons why when I was dealing with acting and all the different things that I did, and when I would go on some of my auditions, and people loved my talent, but some people would clown me because they're like, you really don't have the look. And I get that. I get that. And there was never no qualms about it because I had already dealt with my acceptance of self. My mom made sure I dealt with that early on because she knew you trying to get into an industry, it's all about your looks. You better deal with this thing right now. Stop looking at the color of your skin. So what I told myself when I got to a certain level, you know, especially when things started really, really changing, I said, you know, study your craft, figure out where you want to find yourself, what you want to do, but make sure you deal with every area of insecurity so you don't do a Michael Jackson. I would hate for you to get into the fullness because you're a talent. I know my talent. You know, we have to know our gifts. We have to know who we are, but we also have to check our pain because, like I said, people will attach things to our pain, and when we have access to money, we will do some crazy things. There's several celebrities who have bleached their skin and then get up on the camera, and we're looking at a science project. Once again, thinking that the skin is making them beautiful, but it's the features that qualify your beauty. It's your features, and also, I'm going to be honest, it's your character really that qualifies your beauty. But, once again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. When you're looking at certain aspects of physical beauty, there's certain qualifiers, and the skin cannot be a qualifier. When you go back to Laura Govan, and I'm not trying to diss her at all, that is a good common case of someone who is, you know, got the shade, like Paul Mooney says, the complexion for the protection for the collection. I hope I said it right. But at face value, you know, if your hue came down just a few more notches, people would have some things to say about your features. That's the reality. That is the reality. I think Chrissy said it, and even I kind of thought, I was like, I know both light and dark women that will walk this woman around the table, you know, that are bad with some features, and she shouldn't appear with this issue. Good morning, my son has woken up. So he's probably gonna say something. Say hi, Nathan. He sleeps, so I'm gonna let him sleep on me while I continue this lesson. Say hi. You can say hi if you want to, or you can go night-night. Go ahead and go back to night-night. Okay. So let's get back into this meat here. You know, one thing about Little Kim, when they did the movie, you know, she said, you know, I feel like a Spanish woman trapped in a black girl's body. When Nautry Naughton, you know, did the performance, she was like, she's classless. I don't even know why she did that role. They should have got Adrienne Bailon. I went, dang, that's kind of cold. You know, like, you really think, it was like, you think you look like, oh, okay, that's your psychosis. Okay, I get it now. The story that I see when I look at all of these cases, it's a psychosis. It's like Hollywood's Stepford Wives. It's a hot mess. It's the sunken place. So it goes back to what I said about colorism being the symptom, for supremacy being the root, and we're still playing out this Willie Lynch, and we've only been emancipated. We weren't set free. I've been saying it over and over again. We uphold and love whiteness and supremacist views so much that we say so much bad stuff about ourselves and our own complexion. And it's really sad what happens in our families. You know, there's that new thing that came out with the guy, I think his name is something Vasquez, Papino Vasquez. And he has, yeah, it's okay, baby. Okay, son. I know. I'm going to finish talking, though. My son likes to talk with mommy all the time. But Papino Vasquez, and one thing he's always putting up images of him and his biracial baby. Always putting up images with him and his biracial baby. And then there's only pockets of images with him and his non-biracial baby. And when they're up, he's always low-key dissing her. I went on Facebook, and when he's interacting with the biracial baby, it seemed like all the other groups, non-black groups, were saying, "Oh, he's such a good father. This is how fathers are supposed to be." And then when you saw the interaction with the black girl, I think he clowned her. He was like, here's my here's my daughter. Being with, she's mad because I won't kiss on her, even though in other videos he's always hugging and kissing on the other one. And then he kind of clowned her hair. Her hair looks a little messy. We just went swimming, but don't worry about it. And all the comments are coming back like, dude, this isn't healthy. Like, you are dealing with some issues here. That pits everybody against each other. And then you have all this sibling rivalry and all these different things. Mom. Yes, baby. Yes? Okay, can I finish talking since you got up early? Okay, Nathan. Yeah. So, I always joke and say the diaspora has a funny way of bringing our melanin back so we can deal with it. And the reason why I say that is because, spiritually, I believe, that the diaspora just has a funny way of making us deal with the ugly. When I look at my own face and the fact that I needed to reckon with this particular face, this nose, these moles, this look, the diaspora was like, you are going to love this particular person for a reason. This is your DNA. This is your calling card. This is your signature. Even with the Laura Govan and Gary Arenas, I feel like the diaspora was like, love your melanin. Love who you are. I know you set out to produce something else, but I want you to love you. And, our lotto of our genes, we can go out of our way and do a whole lot of stuff, but we have no control of what the genes do, no matter what we do. I'm trying to see where I am. So the new narratives, all these different hierarchies. The new narratives. Here we go. So Amber Rose tried to jump into this conversation. And the reality with Amber Rose is, yes, she is biracial. But Amber Rose has already went public saying vehemently, I am not a black woman. I am biracial. She wanted to make it very clear. Don't you dare call me black. I think she's only like a quarter black. She's not even half black. But she jumped into this black struggle space with feminism. And that is problematic because what she began to talk about was her experience and how men pit the black women and the black dark women and the black light women against each other. And the reality is we all do that. It's not just the men. Women do it too. We all do it. At one time, it was the Al Buture era, So we all do that. But then she said in her article, we women need to stick together and come against these men and tell them to stop doing this to us because it's killing us. And I was like, we can't even accept that. And the reason why we can't accept that is because feminism has really no place in the black struggle movement because of what it has already done. And the reality for our issue is it's not a man-woman struggle. It's a black struggle comparison to whiteness. It goes back to colorism being the symptom and supremacy being the root. So instead of us saying women rally together and go against the men, no, light-skinned men, dark-skinned men, light-skinned women, dark-skinned women. You guys all rally together, get some mirrors, and start loving yourselves. Start speaking words of life into each other. Let's get some therapy sessions, some group sessions, some kind of healing circles where we really start talking about and share stories. Let's pinpoint it. Let's talk about this Willie Lynch, letter. Let's deal with it. Let's start really going on some lessons of self-love because it's self-hate. And then once we've healed, let's stand up to supremacy and say, here's your colorism back. We don't want it. Because it's a chain. So we're taking the chain off of ourselves and we're throwing. That's the real way we fight this thing. Until that, we're going to always see the psychosis. So that's the issue I have with Amber Rose trying to jump into the conversation. Immediately when I read it, I was like, I'm going to need you to step back, biracial Becky. And I'm only saying that because she vehemently made it clear I'm not a black woman. And, you know, the way she gets by in society, she's doing that in her whiteness. And that's another form of her psychosis. Because reality is, if blackness didn't exist, she still wouldn't be here. Let me bring up George Lopez real quick.
My name is Bud.
Sure. You know, George Lopez made that joke. And when he made the joke, that was another situation that stuck everybody. But the reality is when you do remove the complexion, remove the hair texture, remove the culture, because culturally the Latino community is, you know, either a part of whatever group they're a part of, where they were, you know, like, just like we're Americans, so we speak in English and, you know, that type of thing. But ethnically, you know, it's a mixture of Native American, Taino, Spain, or Portuguese, and black because of the West African slaves. Because more went down to the South Americas, and then only like 20% got to North America. So when you look at George Lopez, do that test on him. You can see the diaspora in his skin. You can see it in his nose. And I'm not saying that he's ugly. I don't think he's an ugly man. I'm just saying, take a look at him. He made the joke, don't bring nobody black home. And my response back to him was, somebody in your lineage already did. So the joke's really on you. Because the reality is, we've seen that group deny the very black on their faces. We've seen talk to people that will look just like us, same complexion, and say, I'm not black. You know, that's not who I am. You know, that's not, and you'd be like, okay, psychosis. Because it's a global thing. It's not just exclusive to our black Americanness. This is a global thing, according to not just whiteness, the Eurocentric, because what whiteness is, they shed most of whatever culture they add to form this thing. Let's jump into what I call the nonverbal image. And we had a situation, I think it was about maybe a couple of months ago, with Mike Colter, Luke Cage. And I love Luke Cage. I love the series. My sisters and I watch it all the time. So when Mike Colter got up to speak, I was like, I'm going to hear this black man got to say. Come on, Mike Colter, bring it. Because, you know, this is a little revolutionary thing. And what I call the nonverbal image is, you know, when the behavior happens, when we see, you know, it happens every time. Jill Scott talked about this in her article, The Wince. I put the link down. Jill Scott went on CNN and she was talking about, I want to see our people heal, because when we'll see, you know, a black man with a white woman, and we have like a little sting inside. And it's not that we hate interracial dating. Something from our 500 years of being here and all the different things that have happened to us psychologically, our trigger comes out. I talked about at the beginning of this. With Mike Colter, when he went on Wendy Williams, as soon as they showed his wife, the whole audience did it at once. It was like a collective, like, we saw it. Stockholm syndrome was in effect, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, it was that sunken place, you know, that whole, the mixing of the Africanness and it jumped out. And people confuse that with, we're hating on interracial dating. But the reality is, that was the trigger. On the Breakfast Club, you know, he was talking about the experience with Charlemagne. And I took the transcript of it because I listened, because I really wanted to hear what he had to say about it. I you know, and it's really important. And what he said, not only was it problematic, it continued to answer why we are still here. In this state, in this psychosis. And the issue that I have is that all the commentators that we had after it, nobody talked about what was said in the Breakfast Club interview. I put the link down. It starts at marker 19. Please go watch it. And watch it with its hidden in plain sight type of eyes. Because first he starts off on the love is love, marry anybody who you want. And then something happens, and then his psychosis slips out. But the way his slips out, he does it in such a calming way, and in such a, yeah. But then when you really listen to what he's saying, he's like, wait a minute, what you just said is problematic. He said, I love my sisters. Man, there's this type. If we caught a sister walking around with a 6 foot, 7 foot brother, that's her type or his type, or the next week she is with a short guy, Spanish type. It's about character type. My thing is I'm a human being. I look at people from character and what's inside. I'm not into the, well, yes, physically, but because, you know, he works out. That's my thing, but you got to be on the same page. So I met my wife when I was struggling and from grad school, and she stuck with me for 16 years. She held me up many times. I held her up before, you know. So people don't understand when being with somebody long term is way more important than skin color. That's going to make it work. And then Charlemagne interjected and said, you know, yeah, love is love. And then he said, yeah, love is love. And then he was like, you know, you got to stick to what you know. And then Charlemagne was going to interject with something. I'm really interested in what he was going to say. But then Angela Yee cut him off and said, that bothers me because my dad is Chinese and my mom is West Indian. They're different cultures. And then he cuts her off and the psychosis slips right in. And he says, yeah, and you're exotic and beautiful. I'm laughing because when I saw it happen, I was like, uh-oh, here we go. He's about to obliterate what he just said above, you know, above. And so Angela Yee continued. She's like, yeah, if they didn't get together, I wouldn't be here. So, you know, she's repping for the whole interracial, you know, side of, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. And there isn't. I've already said that. But in the midst of her repping for it, his psychosis is starting to slip out. Because, let me continue. He said, mixing the races, there's the new narrative that mixing the races cures racism. And that narrative is false. I need to say that right now. But he said, mixing of races have created such wonderful people nobody talks about. And then he said, I wish he didn't have a white, he said, nobody talks about, I wish he didn't have a white mama. And he was referring to President Barack Obama. And then he said, I'm sure he wouldn't be president. And I'm keeping it real. So basically he's saying, if Barack Obama didn't have a white mom, he wouldn't have been president. And in some aspects, you know, I'll give him that. There is some truth to that, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. And then he said, because honestly, we have a problem in society where we have to take things in phases to be a black person with a white person in 2016 is so old. It's so petty. And then Charlemagne asked the question, so are you saying Barack needs a little bit of white privilege to be president? And then he looked like, for mass appeal wise, like he was trying to clean it up. And then Angela Yee tried to soften the blow by saying, well, it's the color of his skin, you know, like the color, like, you know, it's helping the cause, you know, like the color of his skin is helping the cause. And then he says, you know, he was black. It makes his black more digestible and more acceptable. He has a strong black name and we appreciate that. But visually, I think white America appreciated that. Then Charlemagne jokes by saying, I know you're an honorable man because you're struggling. You got a white girl with good money, credit, and most leave, and you don't leave. You stuck with yours. And then he said, no, listen, man, don't. She's one of those people who doesn't see. And then he stopped talking. He was about to go into, she doesn't see color, but then he stopped. He stopped himself. And then he said, she's one of those people that is a helper who supports the black community. We all have to join together and stop looking at it as us against the world, people that are with us. And then Charlemagne says, we need white people to use their privilege to combat prejudice. And then he was like, real talk. And then he was like, our society going on now with the police force and African Americans, you know, they feel our pain. And everyone that's white, you know, they're not bad. And, you know, they're our allies. And you know, we shouldn't just believe that, you know, they don't have our support. And Angela was like, yeah, we shouldn't judge. You know, we don't want them to judge. And one thing I want to bring up about is that part where he says it makes his blackness more digestible when he was talking about Barack Obama. And here's why that's problematic. You know, in the beginning, he said it's about the character, it's about the content. That's what life is about. That's what the love is about. That's what he said. But then he just totally contradicted himself in this next part about Barack Obama, about we love your strong name, but it makes your blackness more digestible to whiteness. That, my friends, is a problem. And here's why it's a problem. I don't have a problem, like I said, with love is love, with people, my baby wants to sing, you know, with love is love, with and that sort of thing. There's nothing wrong with it. I already said, biracial people who are having their struggle in that twofold society need to stand up to whiteness, because that's who's putting the barrier on them. But the bigger issue right here is, why is it that we have to now basically, mix out our blackness to be more palatable for whiteness? I get it. I understand that Barack Obama had to be, and I hate to even say this, the house slave in order to do that. That's how the psychosis has always worked. But the way he was repping it, he contradicted his original statement of, it's about character, it's about content of character. If it's really about content of character, then you should have been able to become president. And those white people should have accepted you as a black man with the color of the skin that you have. That's when it's about content of character. That's why I keep saying mixing of the races doesn't cure racism, because he kind of proved it with his statement by saying Barack Obama makes his blackness more palatable. That's our psychosis. And what I hate is that nobody was checking him. What I like at the end, because the whole time I was like, why is Envy so quiet? And then finally Envy came up with the $1 million question, and he said, does your wife work for Netflix? And he said, yes, she does. And Charlamagne joked, oh, that's how you got your job. And I'm going to be honest, 10% of the joke, and 90% is the truth. And once again, that was painful to watch. I almost cried after listening to that. And the reason why I almost cried is because in that first, he could have stopped at that first part, and I'd have been like, that man loves his wife. Right on, brother. It's all good. We ain't even going to judge you like that. But the second they slipped into that conversation on interracial, he went, you are exotic and beautiful. I went, damn it, here comes his psychosis. This man is suffering from colorism. One white woman said in a thread when on that interview, she said, it's such a shame that he married white, because we'll never have another carbon copy look like him. We'll never have another phenotype that looks exactly like him, because he's a handsome man. And I was like, she's right. And then I had two questions in my head based on how we've lived in the society. She's absolutely right, based on this thing, as far as us, changing our phenotype and changing what we look like in society. And the other thing is, did you say that because you genuinely accept the beauty of his humanity, or you have your own sense of fetishes? Like, where did that come from? I'm curious. That's me, and that's just something that I would love to talk about, just to work out just where it came from. But the reality is, it's the truth. Phenotype. And then that made me think about even other cultures, how they change who they are to fit into whiteness, to make it more palatable. See, that's what's problematic. Why do we have to keep making ourselves palatable for whiteness? That's not freedom. That is not freedom. That's why I keep saying it is a myth. Mixing the races to cure racism is a myth. We can look at the Latina community to see that does not work. It doesn't work because of all the different things that they deal with, because they tried to mix the races to get the black out, and it still rises up. Overall, with this podcast, especially to anything else I want to talk about in my notes, as far as our healing, one thing we have to do is we have to check all these false narratives. I notice anytime somebody brings up that nonverbal trigger, they immediately slip into stop hating on interracials. We have to get clear that we are not fighting interracial people or interracial dating or interracial relationships. We're dealing with our wit being ghostwritten. We're dealing with our Stockholm syndrome. And when we see the action of love, and I hate to say that love is possession, because that's not really what it is, but when we see that happening, something inside of us gets triggered because we're already unloved individuals. And that goes both ways, both black men and women, because you're seeing it in the system. You see it on social media every day. Black men do it and black women do it. There was a site, I think they're called Christian and Kelly. I might say their names wrong, but they were trying to cite reasons why you shouldn't date black men and why they, do interracial dating. And their reasons were just as bad as Michael Colter's. And I said, these are not the answers. You don't do that to work out your issues, because then you're going to put those on your biracial children. Like I said, love is love. Marry who you want, both ways. But you got to stop the psychosis so we don't keep bringing that on to the next generation. So we got to start dealing with these false narratives, these things that come into our space, especially how Amber Rose was like, we women got to jump on the men. No, we black people have to rally together, form some kind of rehabilitation amongst each other, like a love campaign. I'm serious, like a full-on, we're going to break our self-hate love campaign. We're going to look in the mirror together and say, I'm black, my nose is big, and I love the bit, like Beyonce said, you know, I like my man with the Michael Jackson nostrils or Jackify nostrils and my baby hair, you know, with baby hair and afros, you know, and it's nothing wrong with it. It's nothing wrong with it. We have to really do that with ourselves. And then we got to pick up this colorism and throw the chain back at supremacy and say, here you go. You can't control us no more. Because as long as we're dealing with the fear, the distrust, and the envy, we're going to keep seeing our chasms. I called the title of this Beautifully Human. And the reason why I'm calling the title Beautifully Human, and Jill Scott has an album called Words and Sounds Volume 2, Beautifully Human. The reality is we all are human. That's the reality. See, the man said, we got to be more palatable to whiteness, but no, if we really are living in a free state, if we're really living in freedom, white people should see our humanness. I should be able to show up in this utopian land just as I am and be accepted just as I am, not by how close to white I can get. That's not right. So is that a victory? No. And I understand the other side of it that, yeah, okay, we couldn't have brought the quote-unquote field slave to the party. We had to bring the house slave because that's how it's always been societally been. But the reality is, it's not right. He was repping it as if it was right. He was repping it as if these are our allies. It's okay. No, your psychosis just slipped out. You done linked up with this white lady for some form of individual benefit here. And now you're repping the whole exotic and beautiful. Black people are exotic and beautiful. White people, and I even hate to say this in this phrase, but they can be also called that, exotic and beautiful. We all are exotic and beautiful. And I'm not, and I understand in some aspects, I get what you're trying to say, but that was your psychosis. I can't say preference. Preference is starting to become code for self-hate. The second thing is we have to protect our healing. When Jill Scott got up, watch that. The black guy who was doing the reporter, it was like he didn't even delve into the topic. He said, why did you do this topic? And the way he did it, it was almost like in slavery times, it was like, why are you making trouble? Black woman, why are you making trouble? You gonna cause a riot. Massa not gonna like this. That's what he was saying. And then he started deflecting the narrative. He was like, do you like interracial? And then they started shifting the conversation to hatred of interracial dating. And she had to say, no, I'm not saying that. Love is love. I'm talking about our healing. We have to talk about that trigger. The whole audience on Wendy Williams had the same interaction. 3. Where is it? We are beautifully human. And we got to break down this Willie Lynch letter. That was a catastrophe. It has plagued us. So we got to now read that letter, and everything that they did, we got to unlock it. And I don't have all the answers with that, but I'm saying if we got to form a rehabilitation curriculum and be deliberate about our deliverance from it, then that's what we got to do. I need somebody to form a documentary, somebody form a training. Since nobody wants to get in and sit down and read, let's put some videos together. And I'm serious, start some kind of national black love, we gonna love ourselves campaign. Because I'm seeing too much skin bleaching. The fact that we got that Essence article, that was very telling of what's going on in our American society. I couldn't even get to the article, and I have, a lot of people had a little bit of problems with the article because we were like, you could have brought in some other rappers too. Not that they were bad, but there's some other people that could have been classified. And then also that term, we got to come up with some of our own stuff. So there's so much more we could go into this, but time is always what it is. But we have to start checking ourselves. We're all human. We're all here. But we got to start dealing with this because what Kodak Black did is showing that we haven't healed. and we're celebrating these false narratives and these false victories, thinking that, oh, we're getting closer, and it's the same old, you know, I hate to say SHIT. So until lions tell their tale, the story will only glorify the hunter. I am Chanel J. Wilson, and excuse my colloquial euphemism, but we're gonna get free today. Bye. And I gotta get this little boy up and ready because he's ready, so I'm gonna go get him fed. Bye.